we'll take a little break before a little some time before our audience join us. Jen, would you please be able to play the Baul song for our audience?
পারলে মনো বেরি করতে পারলে মনো বেরি দিতাম পাখির পায় কেমনে আসে যায় খাঁচার ভিতর আছিন পাখি কেমনে আসে যায়
Thank you. Welcome to the Persecution Report. I'm Tono Imroz Alam, your host. Today we bring to light a crisis that threatens not just musicians, but the soul of our nation. For centuries, Baul and Sufi tradition have carried messages of spirituality, harmony, pluralism, and cultural richness. Yet today, under the rule of Muhammad Yunus, these traditions face unprecedented danger: arrests, mob attack, forced humiliation, even murder. Joining me today, Anwar Sadat Jihan, the co-host, Dr. Bidit Dey, professor, and Muhibul Hassan Chaudhry Naufel, former minister and an Awami League leader. My first question is to Dr. Dey. Dr. Dey, why are Baul and Sufi traditions culturally significant, and what is at stake if they are suppressed?
Thank you, Mr. Alam. It's a very topical area, and thanks for having me today. So, as we know that Baul culture is a spiritual and musical tradition that emerged as syncretic movement blending Hindu Vaishnavism, Islamic Sufism, Buddhism, and Buddhist Tantraism. So the history of Baul culture in the Ganges Delta, which include both Bangladesh and West Bengal, goes back to 15th century. And that actually culminated with popularity, and it spread during the 19th century, or late 19th century, when we know about Lalun Shah. But also we have to understand the genesis. The etymology of the word Baul often is traced back to Sanskrit word vakul or Persian word owl. So vakul means something eccentric, whereas the Persian word alludes to more about spirituality, reaching out to the Almighty. So regardless of what that etymology says, it is understood that it's about a different way of nurturing, practicing your spirituality, different way of reaching out and converging with the Almighty, who we all worship or pray. So in a way, it is a philosophical tenet. At the same time, it is an amalgamation of multiple religions that we have in this particular region. Now then, I would also like to draw your attention to a very fascinating connection. We all know about Charyapad. In English, they would call it Charyapad, which is deemed as the earliest literature written in Bengali between 8th and 12th century, which was actually found in Nepal Royal Library, and then of course was published in 1917. So the unique connection between Baul philosophy and Charyapad is that both are written, practiced, and composed by commoners, not by social or religious elites, not by dogmatism, but by an open mind, a sense of inclusivity, unburdened by any religious dogmatism or philosophy. And that, in essence, says a lot about us as a nation, that We are, we historically have been an agrarian society. We have root of that is based on the very nature of the geography, topography, which constitute our sense of identity, the way we perceive about the world, the way we perceive about people around us, and how we would interact with them. If I may add here, the uniqueness of Bengali culture may be beneficial for people outside the country. That if you compare Bengali Hindus with North Indian or other parts of subcontinental Hindus, you will see that Bengali Hindus are normally much more liberal and progressive. If you look at Bengali Muslims, they are they have the inherent practice of spirituality quite distinct from people from the other parts of subcontinent. And that's why we know about 1952 language movement, when Bengalis actually protested against imposition of Urdu as the official and only official language, whereas in other parts of Pakistan it wasn't protested. So Bengali Muslims and Bengali Hindus alike, and so are Bengali Christians and Bengali Buddhists and the indigenous community in this particular area, we all are connected together with a sense of inclusivity, with a sense of identity that transcends religious boundaries, that define us as Bengali as unique. We have our identity, and a major part of our identity is Bengali. We, in our food, in our traditions, in our customs, in our religiosity, in every aspects of our daily lives, that particular identity is so prevalent. And that's where I'm so proud as a Bengali that we have got so much of influence from Baul philosophy, which inspired Lalun. Lalun inspired the likes of Tagore. In a way, you can say that our national anthem has been inspired by Baul musical tradition. So we cannot disassociate ourselves from Bauls. Thank you very much.
Would you, Dr. Day, say that the formation of Baul philosophy and Vaishnava philosophy in our land is an outcry for equality from the peasants? You are muted.
Yes, absolutely. And to say a bit more about Vaishnavism, which was around 12th to 14th century in the Greater Bengal at that time, which challenged the social hierarchies, which challenged the casteism, which challenged religious supremacy, which was imposed by upper caste Hindus. So that actually democratized Hinduism, and that is so was so important in constituting the cultural and religious fabrics of this region back almost like 1,000 years ago. So there you see that we were well ahead of the rest of subcontinent in terms of our philosophical and our cultural perspectives. And certainly that has got quite entrenched connection with Baul philosophy. Thank you.
We are glad to have Mr. Mohibul Hussain Chaudhuri Naufel here with us today. His father, Mohiuddin Chaudhuri, is one of the legendary Bangladeshi politicians, and him, Mohibul Hussain Chaudhuri Naufel, was once seen, is till today actually, she is seen as an iconic youth politician in Bangladesh. He also was a minister of Bangladesh government. Mr. Chaudhuri, from your experience as executive of the states, what does the government do to protect our cultural, religious, and ethnic diversity, and how important it is?
Thank you for giving me the floor. So, I think Dr. Day has very nicely summarized the connection between Bauls, Vaishnavas, and the Sufi mysticism. I think one of the major challenge of our government, I mean, historically, had been that a specific brand of Islam was being promoted from Middle Eastern and other parts of the world, Middle Eastern countries and other parts of the world, which was not in line with the practice of Sunni Sufism that was prevalent in our part of the world. Now, um, Baul tradition, because it was upholding the theological tradition of Sufism and Vaishnavism and Buddhism and the religious practices and spiritual practices of our part of the world, was seen as a safeguard, as something which was not only just promoting Bengali cultural heritage, but also was an obstacle against a very radical or fanatic form of, I should say, Islamism. Islamism. The word is Islamism, not the religion Islam, and how Islam was being used as a political ideology rather than a spiritual path or a spiritual practice. Unfortunately, after Bangabandhu's assassination in 1975, because the then military dictators wanted to win the hearts and minds of the Arab world, their version of Wahhabi, sort of more conservative and more stricter version of Islam, was being promoted by different quarters in Bangladesh. Despite that, the governments, even though military dictators were in power, the policymakers had always felt that mysticism, spirituality, and this other such rituals and practices will work as safeguard against the spread of hardline, conservative, rigid, dogmatic form of Islam's practice. Unfortunately, what has happened is that for most part of our existence as a country, Bangladesh, the type of rulers that we've had, especially those who came from the cantonment background, military background, General Zia, General Ershad, and General, thereafter Moinu Ahmed and others, their orientation in the practice of Islamic religion, our religion, uh, unfortunately had more alignment with the practices of Middle Eastern countries, and not just Middle Eastern, but I should say Gulf Arabs. I mean, there is a difference between Levantine Arab, Gulf Arab, and North African Arab. Arabs are not just one culture. So the Saudi brand of Wahhabist Salafist movement.
When you, I just would like to intervene for a minute. When you say Gulf countries, did you mean it is? Because my understanding is that when there is religion, like every religion should have some type of conservatism. Some practice conservatism, some are conservative, some are very moderate. When you say Gulf countries, in Gulf countries, especially, we have seen rise of Muslim Brotherhood, which is very conservative Islam. Okay, it's an extreme form of religion. It's the political Islam, the use of political Islam. And my question, I have this additional question to you: that why in Bangladesh political Islam is always used against Bangladesh Awami League? Why they use political Islam to confront the secular ideology of Bangladesh Awami League?
Yeah, so very important question. Thank you, Tane Bhai. So basically, what was happening is that the hardline Muslim Brotherhood's religion, which is the Islamism, was always used against liberals and secular Muslims and liberal Muslims across the world. It's not just in Bangladesh, but in many parts of the world, it was happening, and it was happening under the patronage of those who called themselves Maududis, Maududi Bad. And one of the political parties which came out of this ideology of Maududi Bad, which was directly linked with Muslim Brotherhood, is Jamaat Islami of today in Bangladesh, and to some extent also the Chormonai movement and the Khilafat and other parties. Not Hifazat Islam, that's a different tradition. It's called the Deobandi tradition. So the challenge is that for them, for these people who want to use religion for their political goal, for their political objective, they find institutions like Sufi shrines, institutions like Baul's Bengali cultural movement as a barrier to radicalize the society at large. They want to impose their type of religion. They believe in only one form of Islam. You see, what we have to realize is that Islam as practiced in Bangladesh is not same as Islam practiced in, let's say, Syria or Indonesia or even Bosnia. I mean, those who are in Europe, they know Islam is not a monolithic religion. How the Muslims in UK, Bengali Muslims practice Islam is fundamentally different, or I mean, except for the basic five, our basic five, the elements, the pillars, many things are different. Albanians are different from Kosovans. North Africans are different from Sub-Saharan Africans. I mean, it's a diverse world, but these people don't believe in diversity. They believe in one monolithic, dogmatic, rigid, conservative, fanatic Islam through which they want to rule society. Yeah. So that's why they are targeting the bowels. That's why they are targeting. I mean, you'll see there is a correlation with targeting bowels and targeting the Sufi shrines in across the country. A Sufi shrine was not just vandalized, but the saint, those who believed he was a saint, his body was taken out of the grave and burnt, just like it is seen from the medieval Europe, where they were burning witches, people who were accused of being witches, witchcrafts and so on. They were burning them in the fire. So you see, these people are holding very medieval, very backward, and ultra radical thoughts. And they are unfortunately being supported now by the state, by the government of Bangladesh right now, because the government of Bangladesh right now, especially the regime of Yunus, they feel that because they lack support from the people, there is no mandate, there was no election, there is no support, so they are now riding on the shoulder of the ultra conservatives and especially radicals. Conservatism is not a problem. Conservatism is not a problem. But what is a problem is the radicalism. And now they are promoting the radicals and openly calling for war with India, openly calling for regional conflicts, and want to create social militias. This advisor Asif, he was calling for a militia force of young people who would be carrying guns. Where are you taking the country to? We were a country of Bauls, Sufis, Jatra, Pala, Jari, Shari, Gan. We were a country of liberal Islam. We were a country of liberal Hinduism. We were a country of, everything that was considered liberal in the subcontinent. And they want to get rid of that because their aim is to turn the whole society into a jihadi, into a whole scale jihadi generation. So Often I have been hearing, I mean, I go to these groups of these people, they are now trying to convert the Gen Z of Bangladesh into Gen Zihadi. And that's the sad part, that our Gen Z has now fallen into the trap of these people who want to convert the Gen Z into Gen Zihadi, So that's their objective. So our government, in so many ways, have overlooked the rise of these extremist elements in society, and we were not able to counter their extreme culture with our liberal culture. And that's where I think in many ways we've failed, because they've used the social media to promote their version of ultra hardline radical Islam. They use
But
the mainstream
what
media
my
now.
understanding is, Mr. Chaudhary, that in Bangladesh, the radical extremist people are just a handful. They cannot be, the numbers will not cross like 8 to 10%. Even if Jamaat Islam goes to an election today with all these hypes by themselves, they cannot secure more than 2 to 4% of the votes. That's the reality in Bangladesh.
Absolutely. However, you've got to understand that even if it is 5% of 170 million people is quite a number. And this 5% is not a docile, quiet, tolerant 5%. These are jihadi minded extremists who can create a lot of havoc and chaos in society. So the manner in which our leader Sheikh Hasina for 15 years regulated these elements, contained them, uh, now no one is doing that. In fact, I mean, it was appreciated across the world. The manner in which she did it, American government to the Europeans, they were appreciating it. But Yunus, for years, at the same time, were running counter propaganda, calling it oppression and repression. Whereas, Bangladesh was successful in regulating radicalism, whereas United States had to take people to Guantanamo Bay and lock them up for many years without trial. Bangladesh didn't do that. Bangladesh didn't have to do that. But Yunus and the Muslim Brotherhood of Bangladesh, which is Jamaat Islami, they ran campaign for many years through their Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood brethren in Europe, that we are running concentration camps and what they are calling the Ainaghor. And they were successful in convincing certain European policymakers and human rights organizations to convince them with their lies, with their deceits. And now they see what kind of people they are. And I think Europeans especially, and the Americans now, they must realize that they have unleashed the Frankenstein in Bangladesh, which will soon bite them, which will soon come to their shore, because we are 170 million people only in our country, but there is at least 5 million people all over the world, in Europe, to the US, to UK, to Australia. And these people, if they are also radicalized, because the home country is being radicalized, there will be an effect on these people who are living in these western shores, and they will become security threat. And it will be a bigger threat than, I will say, ISIS. It will be a bigger threat than Al Qaeda, if this regime continues to build a hub of terrorism in Bangladesh.
We understand is that these extremist political outfits, those who are using religion for their as a political ideology, they have a tendency of uh, creating violence in societies to get what they want. We have, it's not just in Bangladesh, we have seen it in Egypt in 2012. If we remember, they're attacking the American embassy in Egypt, and at the end, even America's then President Barack Obama had to issue a statement, which is that they are bending. It was very much like an apology issued to the extremists. Now, the question here is, I do not believe that Yunus himself is a radical person, that he may not, he is not a radical person, but is he a cunning person, use these radical forms and radical outfits to his benefit to create chaos in the society and get what he wants? And these bowels
Absolutely,
and the mystic
absolutely. You
sects
don't
are
have to be,
becoming his victims.
you don't have to be personally radical. I mean, you see Jinnah's case, Jinnah was not even a practicing Muslim. And but then he divided the subcontinent on the basis of religion. And same thing with Mr. Yunus. Mr. Yunus takes the shape and form wherever he is. So, in front of the Western media and Western crowd, he's someone who is supporting the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual movement through his daughters, in fact. And back in Bangladesh, he's suddenly the messiah of the Al Qaeda backed, ISIS inspired radicals over there. So these people are worse than I say Ayman al Zawahiri. These people are worse than Bin Laden, Osama bin Laden, because you know what Bin Laden is up to. Osama bin Laden, we know who he is and what he can do. We know what Hamas can do. We know what Ayman al Zawahiri can do, but we don't know what Dr. Yunus can do. And these people are worse. And unfortunately, the Westerners who are continuing to back who are continuing their support for this gentleman, Mr. Yunus, do not realize that he is at the end of his lifespan. For him, it doesn't matter what happens to Bangladesh or this generation. He doesn't care. He has achieved almost everything in his life. He wanted a Nobel Prize, which he got. He wanted to be part of European elite society. He became one. This was his last landmark that he wanted to achieve, and he's achieved it. But at what cost? That's the question. And what is the future? That is the question. Everyone has to wake up that this man, through his regime, won't even tolerate music teachers in primary schools. I mean, this was never an issue in Bangladesh. Music teachers were always there. Yes, we didn't have enough teachers to deploy, but now that we have a lot of music teachers who want to work, I mean, music is not forbidden in Islam, except for a very dogmatic, conservative, radical Islam. Music is not forbidden. What's the problem of having physical education teachers in schools? I mean, don't the children have to be physically fit? I mean, absurd things. I mean, we don't. I mean, this is Taliban-like behavior. We don't live in a Taliban-led Afghanistan. This is Bangladesh, and this is where I say a lot of responsibility lies with the people like Mr. Wakaruzaman, who, in his personal capacity, he may be a hardline conservative, but he is partly also responsible for this rise of radicals in Bangladesh, because it is happening straight under his control on
What
society and the institutions.
what my general understanding of Baul, Sufis, and mystic singers, what I have seen, is that these are the people, they do not have assets, they do not have money, they beg door to door for food, for just basic necessities, and they sing for humanism, humanity. These are the most simplest people on earth. And it is very difficult for me to comprehend that someone would go after these people just for political gain. I mean, the list of horrors are like growing. Recent viral videos we have seen on social media in Bangladesh, we have seen forced head shaving and beard shaving of elderly Sufi practitioners, people who simply followed a spiritual way of life. In the district of Moymonsing, for instance, a 70-year-old shrine dweller had his 30-year-old locks cut off in public. Even more shocking, In Narayanganj, the body of a man, husband of a Baul singer, was found on the roadside, apparently hacked to death. We know who are those people who hacks someone to death from behind. In the Thakurganj district, a group of Baul artists were attacked in broad daylight in front of police, apparently by radical mobs shouting for their death. And despite all this clear video evidence, perpetrators they remain as in large. The criminals and perpetrators, there is no accountability. Jihan would be able to give us a better overview. He has some slides for our audience to watch. Jihan, would you please?
Thank you, Mr. Alom, for connecting today. Praised for their syncretic mysticism, for their fervid promotion of peace, tolerance, and love, recognized by the leading world bodies such as UNESCO for their uniqueness, the Bauls and the Sufis are part of our Bengali identity. Since the fall of the Awami League government, the democratically elected Awami League government, the power vacuum and the absence of lawlessness that we have seen in Bangladesh has resulted in catastrophic fate for the Bauls and the Sufis. Across the country, from Thakurgaon to Kustia, they have come under brutal mob attacks, and when they cannot suppress them using mobs, they are resorting to the abuse of the judiciary, as you will see in the following slides. Right after the fall of the Awami League government between August and January, there had been 44 reported attacks on 40 shrines across the country, and this is government reported data. While the unconstitutional Yunus regime has placed zero tolerance against such atrocities, we have seen zero action, and we have seen zero respect from the Yunus regime towards our Bengali culture. I wonder whether this is the 3 zeros that Mr. Yunus likes to talk about. For nearly half a century, the Alimuddin Chishti Majar in Narayanganj had a very peaceful existence. Every Thursday there would be Baul songs, there would be mahfils. But all that has changed when the radical elements of society went and vandalized and shut down their shrine. According to the reporter of Daily Star who went there 2 or 3 times after the fall of the Awami League government, the shrine remains closed till this very day. And then the Al Chisti shrine in Nator came under brutal attack by the BMP Jamaat goons. Why? Because the organizer failed to provide them with the extortion of 2 lakh Bangladeshi taka. And they shut down their festival, the Baul festival, as a result. And then we have seen in Maimansingh a 200-year-old shrine. No such thing has ever happened in the last 200 years in the country. A 200-year-old Sufi shrine was demolished by the same radical elements. And these are just the mob attacks, the use of mobs. That is a new reality in Bangladesh now. And when they are failing to suppress through mobs, they are resorting to the abuse of the judiciary. We all know that the anti-liberation war, anti-71 forces are in state power now. And this is evident from their abuse of the so-called blasphemy law, a Pakistani, the British era blasphemy law. It is a British era law, the section 295A, which was actually established to safeguard religion. However, we have seen in Pakistan how after Ziaul Haq came and brought down Islamization, this blasphemy law was abused. And in the similar fashion, in Bangladesh today, this there had been a rampant rise in the abuse of this blasphemy law. In Manikganj, a Baul singer Abul Sarkar was arrested for allegedly hurting the religious sentiments. I don't know if something is said hurt the religious sentiments of somebody, whether the Jamati leaders who are making insane remarks about our God, about our prophets, hurt somebody's religious sentiments. We have seen a Jamaat leader claiming that he can stop the sun. Allah has given him that ability. I don't know whether this type of insane remark hurt anybody's religious sentiments or not. And when you dare to protest this illegal injustice, you again face the mob. 3 devotees of Abul Sarkar was brutally attacked and tortured and thrown to the river right in front of the police. And then we have seen in Nayanganj the husband of a Baul singer Sonia Sarkar, who was hacked to death. Allegedly, simply because he encourages his wife to pursue music and sing Baul song. Besides all this, we have seen a nasty trend of forced head shape, forced beard shape of the darvish, of the fakir as we know them. These are innocent people who have a vagabond lifestyle. This is their lifestyle. This guy Halim Uddin Akan, a 70-year-old devotee of Hazrat Shahjalal and Shahparan, his 34 years old hair was forcefully shaved by religious mob because it is un-Islamic. Supposedly it is unholy, and it creates hurt to their religious sentiment. So as we are seeing, there is a rampant rise of these radical elements who are intentionally trying to erase our Bengali identity, of which the Sufi and the Bauls are an important culture. The Sufis were the safeguard of our freedom fighters back in 1971. We have seen Maj Bhandar Sharif in Fotik Chori. They were known as the fortress of the freedom fighters because they proved that true Sufi culture never stand with the oppressor. Yunus, on the other hand, this unconstitutional Yunus regime is with the oppressor. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Alam.
The blasphemy law that doesn't apply here because Baul culture, Baul religious sect, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, everyone falls under the constitutional safeguard of Bangladesh. Bangladeshi constitution ensures the right to believe and freedom of religion. And Bangladeshi constitution does not allow a privilege of one religion over other or one race over other. So these are the forced use of blasphemy law. Also, Bangladesh Awami League, when it comes to political ideologies, Bangladesh Awami League believes in religious freedom. Bangladesh Awami League understands religion is very integrated in Bangladeshi social fabric. This is why the government led by Bangladesh Awami League always facilitated religious practice, also as well as it facilitated building of religious symbols and religious facilities, such as we have seen mosques built all across the land. We have seen temples getting special grants. We have seen pagodas getting special grants. So Bangladesh Awami League understands the fabric of religion, the fabric of Bangladesh. Many may argue it goes against secularism, but secularism in every country is different than others. But radicalism The face of radicalism in every country is same. We have seen the persecution of Yazidi minorities in Iraq, in Syria, by the Islamic States of Daesh. We have seen persecution of Buddhists and Sikhs and Hindus in Afghanistan. We see persecution of Hindus in Pakistan still to date, and Christians in Pakistan, and any other religion in Pakistan who are not Muslims are persecuted, or other sects of Islam are persecuted in Pakistan. It was never the case in Bangladesh before. When persecution of religious minorities happens, this is a telltale sign of radicalism. This is the telltale sign of religious extremism. You have seen it in Afghanistan, you have seen it in Iraq, you have seen it in Syria, now you are seeing it in Bangladesh. There is no way of denial. This is evidential.
Yeah, even the Secretary of State of the United States, Marco Rubio, recently said that this radical Islam, radical elements, this is not just a regional thing. They try to control and they try to rule more and more people, and they try to take grab of more and more areas, So this is not a specific.
Islam is good for Bangladesh and Bangladeshi people. The form of Islam we practice, the moderate form of Islam, like most other Muslims in the world. So that's not an issue. The issue is using religion for political use here. Dr. Day, have you ever seen these incidents in Bangladesh before?
Thanks. I would like to go back to a statement that you have just made about the variability of or the different natures of secularism, and this is particularly important for our international viewers. The way secularism is perceived and defined in Europe and the West is different from how secularism is perceived and defined in the subcontinent. Secularism that we see is not about atheism or a complete separation from religiosity. Rather, it is about championing and celebrating coexistence of all religious beliefs. So secularism is, in a way, akin to pluralism in the context of Bangladesh. And that's where I think this existence of Baul and other smaller, albeit very profoundly important parts of the cultural fabrics and tapestry comes into play. What are you now going back to your question about whether or not we have seen? See, there is a dialectic evolution in the history of this region. It's not about just us. It's, I think, everywhere. Wherever there is liberalism, there is conservatism. Wherever there is extreme religiosity, there are people who would be challenging, fighting for their human rights, for their open and freedom of speech. We have seen what has happened in Iran, for instance, right? And if I may bring in an analogy between the current situation in Bangladesh and what happened in Iran for our Western or our international viewers, what is happening in Bangladesh is just before Khomeini took over. After the revolution, as you know, for a while, there was a kind of a complete anarchy. And actually, the Iranian Revolution was brought and led by Ude Party, which was the then Communist Party in Iran. And eventually, they were all massacred, slaughtered, and the Iranian mullahs, in the disguise of extremely fanatic religious ideology, came into power. And for the last 2.5 decades, we can see what is happening there. So in our case in Bangladesh, we have always seen that religion has been weaponized by the political elites, particularly the right-wing fundamentalist forces. 1947, throughout the time of Ayub Khan, when Bengalis were fighting for their democratic rights, religiosity was used And we know about NSF, the student wing of Muslim League, and Jamaat Islami student wing, Chhatra Sangho, Islami Chhatra Sangho. They were let out to suppress and silence the democratic forces. And in 1971, we all know what happened. There was a complete crackdown and genocide which was perpetrated against Awami League, progressive parties and religious minorities. And then also this extreme form of religion was weaponized. And as long as they will be weaponizing extreme form of religion, and what we have done as a progressive force in Bangladesh, and I'm very proud to say that we have always gone back to our root. We have always used our culture. We have always used our secular identity. We have always used the likes of Bengali New Year, Pohela Boishak. We have used our language. We have used our poetry, our literature. These all are our biggest asset. These are all our asset to fight against extremism. So going back to your question that whether or not it ever happened to Bangladesh, I would say that it is not unusual to happen, but what happens is that progressive forces like Bangladesh Awami League, along with intellectuals, along with we, general people who believe in open and free society, plural society, we have always stood up against them. And of course, Awami League, when they were in the helm of the political power, they certainly confronted them. We saw that how they managed to mitigate the risks coming from Hefajat Islami. We saw in 2015-16 when there was a rise of extremist militant groups, Awami League government didn't take any prisoners. So they actually straight away cracked down on those evil militant groups. And when there was communal riots or communal tension in Kumilla, Ramu against Buddhist communities, Awami League government was quick and prompt in responding to the necessities. So there we see that it's and now Yunus government is just a bystander. They are sometimes giving lip service. Mr. Faruqi put some status on social media, and that's how they wash their hands off. This is not the act of a responsible government. In effect, they are actually pandering to these extremist groups. They are appeasing them, and without their support, Yunus government will not be able to survive and sustain. That's all. Thank you.
I remember in 2000, I believe, when BNP was in power, Dr. Day, there were several incidents of attack against the Baul people, Baul
Yes.
practitioners. Is it
Yes.
right? If you could remember.
Yes, so there are also incidents surrounding Lalon Akhra, the festival that we have in Kushtia every year. So this was vilified as anti-social, anti-Islamic incidents by the extremist groups, because Jamaat Islami was very much ally of the then BNP government, and together they were trying to eradicate those secular festivals. The reason is very clear. If Bangladesh is a secular country, if Bangladesh is a liberal country, they will be politically dead. They do not have their political career in a secular, progressive, liberal, inclusive, plural Bangladesh. So they know it very well. And that's why they always go after these symbols, these cultures. Thank you.
I remember in 2016, it was December 2016, probably 15th December. I remember this date because I wrote a column on Dhaka Tribune on 22nd of December. At that year, 2016, 15th December, there was an attack on Baul practitioners in Netrokona district. It was not really an attack. There was a procession by the religious hard right, and in response, government issued protection for the Baul practitioners, and they actually stopped the Baul assembly just to protect them. Our Awami government stopped the Baul assembly, and activists like us, we were not happy. We were not happy that why would you stop the assembly? Because assembly and freedom of religion are the fundamental rights granted to Bangladeshi people by the Constitution of Bangladesh. And after the outcry of the activists and the civil society, Bangladesh Awami League actually received since 2016, we have never seen such threats practitioners. However, there were we have never seen them stopping an event. I think I'm having some connectivity problem.
Yes, I think there is a little bit of disruption on the sound. So we may go back to Mr. Chaudhary about some concluding remarks if Mr. Alam is unable to continue. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so the only thing I wanted to say at this stage is that Bangladesh is in an existentialist threat. So we are going through a phase where we are not just losing our state institutions, but our social fabric. So it's not just that our culture is at risk, our history is being now rewritten, and in this criminal Yunus's word, it is being reset. So unless the people of the country rise up and all of us work together, whether they believe in Awami League's political ideology or they're opposed to our party, irrespective of their political position or ideology, I think it is high time that the nation works unitedly to oust this extremist regime. One thing I wanted to say here is that you could we sense that this regime, when they took over, these are the things which these are the things were going to come, because when they took over immediately after taking oath, the law advisor, Mr. Asif Nozrul, at the time, I mean the current law advisor of this illegal regime, he freed convicted terrorists, militants, and rapists into the society from the prisons, gave bails to every criminal that was held inside the prison. So, and one of the reasons why they did that is not just that he earned money from these people, but also to create a level of social anarchy and civil unrest which would continue to which would be used to justify their grip in power. And these extremist elements would be used against Awami League and other liberal political forces, and that's what they're doing. So my appeal to everyone, those who are watching our event today, is that whether they're abroad as expat working outside of Bangladesh or within Bangladesh, we now need to raise our voice. We now need to tell the world that it's not just an existentialist crisis for the country, for Bangladesh. It is going to be a problem for the entire region and, in many ways, for the entire world because of the sheer size of our population. It's
And also,
170.
Mr. Chaudhary, if I may supplement here, that the big Buddha statue of Bamiyan was not just Afghanistan's own asset, it's a global asset. Any
Yes,
culture, any art is a global piece of celebration.
absolutely. Absolutely, and Baul culture, Sufi shrines, these are universal heritage, and that is why we have UNESCO, and we have written to UNESCO, in fact, and have told them that artifacts and archaeological sites are being vandalized. So museums have been vandalized because they considered it as shirk, according to their militant form of Islam. They're destroying statues. I mean, statues are not allowed in Islam inside mosques because so that people don't pray to, because Islam forbids idol worshipping for the Muslims, not for those who are not Muslim. They just don't want to keep any kind of, statue in society in general, even in public places. This has nothing to do with Islam's teaching. Even conservative Islam doesn't have an issue with it. But these people, these are militants, and these militants have the same mentality as the Al Qaeda led Taliban in Afghanistan, have the same mentality as the Boko Haram of Nigeria, has the same mentality as Hamas in Palestine. And they would rather see Bangladesh turn into Gaza by provoking war with our neighbors. I mean, it's not just India that they're provoking on a daily basis. They're also provoking Myanmar. Arakan Army, which is a rebel force, they're now saying that they should be working with Arakan Army, which is a threat to Myanmar's sovereignty. Any day, Myanmar could be provoked into attacking Bangladesh. So they would rather turn the country into another Gaza, if not Ukraine, in order to live the way they live. They prefer to live like warlords. How
Mhm.
warlords live in Afghanistan, that's how they want to live. And they want to export their terrorism to other countries. So this is where I would like to end by requesting all our viewers that it is high time that across the world we raise our voice and we bring this to global policymakers' attention that Bangladesh is not just a tiny little country in South Asia. It will be a global problem if we let this continue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary. My apology, my internet connection was disrupted earlier. It was probably because of the snowfall. Uh, what we have listened from our panelists, the situation is severe. Situation is as same as what we have seen in Syria, in Iraq. We have seen the vandalization of sculpture of Bamiyan. We have seen vandalization of heritage sites of Palmyra, and we have seen that Yazidi community, religious sect, were persecuted. This is exactly what we are seeing in Bangladesh right now. In Bangladesh, 1,400 sculptures and heritage sites were vandalized, torched, demolished since August 2024. There is no music in the school. Now we are seeing, just like the Yazidi people, the Baul sect of the country, this mystic sect, is persecuted. These are undeniable evidence of terrorism. And this is happening under the watch and protection of a government, which is worse. It is a government supported by the terrorist, and for its existence, the government is supporting terrorism and the terrorists and the perpetrators. World must act. We are 170 million people in a very small piece of land. This is a problem for the world. Thank you for joining us today, and we will meet you next week, same time, Sunday, 10:30 Bangladesh time. Thank you. Bye.